me live in studio. You can see me on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Rumble, wherever you prefer. So here we go. First, I want to dig into this in the first hour. Nearly 100 people broke into a gas station in Oakland and they ransacked the place, resulting in $100,000 in damage, including $25,000 being taken from the cash register and the ATM. So 100 people, nearly 100 people, broke into this gas station. Now, this is in Oakland, California. They just ransacked the place. So we're going to talk about that next. I'm going to tell you a little bit about the Bach family. So most people will maybe call 911. I think I've called 911 once in my life so far. But most people, they'll call 911 like once, maybe twice in their lifetime at most. Right? Now, the Bach family, they have called the police nearly 40 times since moving into their home in 2018. I'm going to tell you why that is here coming up in just a little bit. An Illinois Senate bill, I want to dig into this. This is 1779, Senate Bill 1779. What it does, it creates a certified medication aid program. So if you go to the doctor, you might see a nurse, you might see a nurse practitioner, you might see a CNA. Now you're going to see a CMA. These are certified Medicaid aides. Through the program, individuals will be able to administer medications under the supervision of a registered nurse. Okay, so an RN. So the bill has been sent to the governor. He's expected to sign it. And I want to talk about this bill because I've gone to the doctor, recently for a couple of checkups, and I found it peculiar. And I haven't gone in years, 25 years old and, in best shape. And I rarely see a doctor. So I haven't gone in quite some time. But, I was going for a couple of checkups. And I just noticed a bunch of young kids. And I never actually saw the doctor. When I used to go, the nurse would come in, she'd check your vitals. Then you wait a little while. And then the doctor comes in. And right away, he's a doctor, right? He comes in and you're like, okay, this guy's a doctor. No. I just kept getting, nurse practitioners. So we're going to talk about this because our country and our state, we should be able to go to the doctor and, actually see the doctor, right? And this bill is a reason why we aren't able to do that. So we're going to get into all of it here on the Morning Buzz. I do want to start with this story out of California. It's unclear how exactly Oakland turned into a total failure, but it did. And all I really know about Oakland and Oakland, California, is that progressives have control of that city. And I know that progressives can take any major city and they can give you the conditions that you don't even see in third world countries. You don't even see these conditions in third world countries. Third world countries, they can't even dream of these kinds of conditions. So nearly 100 people, they broke into this gas station in Oakland. They ransacked the place, and this resulted in over $100,000 in damages, including $25,000 being taken from the register and the ATM there at the establishment. Now, the best part about this whole debacle is that it took the officers just short of 10 hours. It took them about 9 hours and some change to respond to 100 people breaking into this gas station and ransacking the place. It took them 9 hours to respond. So it's unclear if those officers were arguing with the social workers about who should respond to the crime, or if they just were so busy that they had better things to do in this utopia progressive city, right? That's what the problem is. They're overworked because there's things like this happening sprinkled throughout that city, Oakland, California. They're so busy, or they were arguing with the social workers. Here in Illinois, we know that there's these people, they're called the peacekeepers. Okay, so what these peacekeepers are, they're just a bunch of nonprofit individuals who don't work in the private sector, and they're paid by the government, and they're paid like $200 a day to keep the peace in Chicago. Now, these peacekeepers are deliberately, they pull from the ex-convict pool. Okay, so they're ex-convicts, and then they pay them $200 a day to go out there and police the streets in a yellow vest. It's hilarious when you see one of the tapes. And this happened in Chicago. Somebody in a yellow vest, he was a peacekeeper. He pulled somebody out at a traffic light. Somebody was stopped at a traffic light, pulled them out of their car and beat him so bad that he needed plastic surgery. You can't make this stuff up. And why would you want to? Why would you want to? So they were either arguing with the social workers on who should respond to this, or they were just so damn busy. Okay, so in Oakland, California, dozens of looters, they raided this gas station. It happened on Friday morning, causing $100,000 in losses. Shockingly, the thugs spent 40 minutes ransacking the whole store while police were nowhere to be seen. Okay, so it took them 9 hours to respond, the cops. And it's so tragic because you hear about the store owner, and he says, this is the hardest thing I've ever had to go through. And it's so hard for me because I've put my sweat, my tears, day in and day out into this business. So the owner, the story gets juicier because the owner is a legal immigrant. And he talks about how, his aunts, his uncles always talked about how the U.S. was the place to be. And it turns out that it's something like this. And he's like, man, why did I even come here? So according to the New York Post, the store owner, he estimated anywhere between 80 to 100 people broke into his gas station last week. There was like some sort of car sideshow happening in town that day, and everybody attended the car show. And then they went to the gas station afterwards, and then they started ripping apart the shelves. They stole everything they could grab, and including the $25,000 from the ATM and the register. So criminals are not being held accountable. And progressives, they painfully refuse to admit that. They refuse to admit that that has anything to do with this culture of lawlessness just running rampant. So the scariest part about this is that Democrats can potentially turn every city in America into this if they had their way. They had their way, and they're getting their way. When you combine rampant corruption with progressive policies, you get this. You get this story out of California. So I want to give you a couple of stats, then I want to move on. But real quick, in Oakland, you are likely, your chances of becoming a victim of violent crime are 1 in 65. In comparison, San Francisco, it's 1 in 148. So, things are really bad because these people in Oakland, they're beating San Francisco here. And San Francisco, we all know, is the poop capital and it's got double the population, by the way. So this is what happens when cities are run on identity politics and the utter lack of respect for people that these officials are supposed to represent. These people in the public sector do not respect you. They hate you. They mock you. And I got to move on. So the state of New Hampshire has voted Democrat in nearly every election in the past 2 decades. Concord there in New Hampshire, they lean left. So it's unclear if that has something to do with the fact that a homeless encampment has popped up in this family's backyard. But I'm not here to victim shame. I don't want to victim shame this family. But I'm willing to bet that the Bach family has voted Democrat. Okay? If I was a betting woman, I'd say that the Bach family probably has voted Democrat. Statistically speaking, it's likely. So most people, like as I said in the beginning of the show, they call 911 maybe once, twice in their lifetime at most. However, the Bach family has called the police nearly 40 times since moving into their home in 2018. And you guessed it, it's because their backyard has turned into something reminiscent of Skid Row. Okay, so yes, you are correct. It's because their backyard is a homeless encampment. That's why they've called the police 40 times in 2 years. Okay, or in, 2018 to 6 years. It's still a lot. In your lifetime, I think I'd only call the police like maybe once or twice. So I'm going to dig in more to this story. I got to take a quick break. You're listening to Conservative Cat on Cities 92.9, the news and talk of Bloomington Normal. Tomorrow, I will be out at the Corn Crib. I'd love to see you there. I'd love to put up some flags with you. So each flag, $10 buys you a flag. Okay, so we are raising money for Hope for the Warriors. We do this every year. 36 hours we're going to be out there. 36 hours. It's Seats for Soldiers. Big thank you to Steph Q, Miller Lite, Tentac Enterprises, Four Seasons South Club, Jackson County Plus, High Haven, McLean County Asphalt. Really appreciate you guys. I'm going to take a quick break, but we'll be right back. see me live in studio on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and Rumble. Probably not on Facebook. I have been banned from Facebook. It's election season. That's kind of what happens. They pull up tweets or they pull up memes that I've shared back in 2020, and my Facebook account is down. So not streaming on Facebook likely this morning, but it will be up there eventually. So YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Rumble, you'll be able to see me there. Be sure to subscribe. Now, I do want to dig into the story here about the Bach family. Okay, so the Bach family, they've called the police quite a bit. And as I was telling you, I think that they probably have voted liberal. I'm willing to bet. If I was a betting woman, I would bet that they vote Democrat. Okay, so their backyard has turned into a homeless encampment. This New Hampshire family has been terrorized by this homeless encampment that sprouted up behind their historic home, leading to violent encounters with these homeless people, with the beggars. And Robin Bach, the wife, and her husband have spent years restoring this 19th century dream home in New Hampshire to raise their two kids. They've got two kids, ages 8 and 11. And they've been plagued by these campers living in the woods behind their home. They've received death threats. They've heard gunshots. They've heard screams from behind the tree line. The swing set in their backyard that they bought in 2020, it sits untouched by their terrified children who only play in the front yard. Now, I'm not saying this happened because Democrats run things over there and around there where they're at. Concord. We know that Concord has voted Democrat in nearly every election in the past 2 decades. Now, I'm not saying that, but I am saying if Republicans were in charge, this thing would never be happening, okay? I'm not saying it's because Democrats run things around there. I'm saying it probably would have never happened if Republicans were in charge. So I'm going to quote from Robin Bach, the wife here. She says in the New York Post, "I can't even use my backyard. My kids can't go out there. I would like my children to be independent and feel comfortable going outside and playing. And this is the worst it's ever been. The homeless issue is the worst it's ever been. I feel bad for the family, except for the fact that New Hampshire is a stand your ground state. We are not, by the way, here in Illinois. They are a stand your ground state. So at this point, the parents are actively refusing to defend their children because they're beholden to their woke ideology. Okay, so I'm just saying, they're a stand your ground state. So you are actively not defending your children because you're beholden to this woke ideology, and you likely hate guns. I mean, like, it's legally permissible, which I can't say the same for Illinois, for them to use force to protect their property. Unclear why they're crying to the media, this family, or this wife, really, I should say the wife is crying to the media, when they could have the problem solved day one. They could have had this problem solved day one. Okay, like I said, stand your ground state. Since purchasing their house in 2018, the grand plans to renovate it, to raise a family, this is what they've got planned for their family. They wanted to renovate this historic home. Since they moved in 2018, they've called the police 37 times. According to police records reviewed, 6 calls were for an area check. Another 6 calls were for disturbance, as well as domestic and violence and criminal trespassing instances. So they're calling the police constantly. And, it started out as just like maybe 1, maybe 2 tents when she first moved in, or when they all first moved in. But this camp has ballooned to about a half a dozen tents. And New Hampshire they've seen one of the largest increases in homelessness in the country. So just last week, and this is important because the Supreme Court of the United States, they ruled that cities can enforce anti-camping ordinances. So cities can enforce these ordinances. But as of today, no officials are, taking SCOTUS up on this ruling because they believe that the problem lies in a lack of housing. And I'm sorry, but that's not that's not the problem. I think it's the rampant drug abuse. It's got to be that, right? It's not the lack of housing. So we can expect more of the same. Okay, I think that we can expect more of the same. It's kind of weird how this homeless crisis wasn't much of a crisis until fairly recently. So I'm going to wrap this story up on the other side. I do want to get to this Illinois Senate bill here in the 6 o'clock hour. You're listening to Conservative Cat on Cities 92.9 from 6 to 8 a.m. We will get to the Senate bill. What it does, it creates a certified medication aid program. Have you ever gone to the doctor and never actually seen the doctor? This bill, folks, is part of the problem of why you go to the doctor and you never really see the doctor. You might see a nurse practitioner, you might see a CNA. Now you're going to see some CMAs. And I'll tell you what all that means here coming up in just a little bit. Be sure to come back. So the one percenters, 1776, we just celebrated 4th of July, Independence Day. The one percenters of that time period, they put everything on the line. They stood for something. And I think that's something we don't have in this country anymore. There's people who just aren't willing to stand for anything. And it bothers me. But one thing veterans do, they just stand for something. They stand for this country, and they're willing to sacrifice. And there's only, one other person who, is willing to sacrifice their life for you, and that's Jesus Christ, right? So there's spiritual freedom, and then there's your independence, your American freedom. And because those couple of guys who signed the Declaration, the one percenters, the guys who were wealthy and they didn't want to pay like an extra little tax, they could have paid it because they were uber wealthy, right? But it was the principle. And they said, you know what? No, we're going to stand for something. We're not going to back down. And we're going to sign this Declaration of Independence, even if that means my wife being taken from me and held in prison and then later dying, which actually happened to one of the signers of the Declaration of Independence. Even if that means I have to run and go into hiding for the rest of my life. Happened to somebody who signed the Declaration of Independence. So there's hundreds of people out there who are willing to stand for something. And what we're doing is we're doing something very, very small. We're raising money for Hope for the Warriors. They provide programs for these individuals, for the veterans, so they can, live better lives. So we're going to be raising money out at the Corn Crib in Normal, 36 hours straight. I do want to get into the rest of the story where I was talking about the Bach family. I'm going to wrap this up. Then we're going to talk about Senate Bill 1779. Okay, so the Bach family, I told you, I think that they voted Democrat. If I had to guess, if I was a betting woman, 100%, I bet they voted Democrat, just because statistically speaking, New Hampshire, they've voted Democrat, or they've traditionally voted Democrat in the past 2 decades. So the Bach family, and this is how I know likely they're Democrats. Robin Bach, the wife here, who has this homeless encampment in her backyard. Her 2 children can't play. It's a stand your ground state. I don't know why they don't, it's legally permissible for them to use force to protect their property. It's unclear why they're crying to the media now, but this could have been solved day one, but they're not solving it that way. They're crying to the media. So Bach, Robin Bach, she believes that the city should have set up a homeless encampment and provide these people with the resources they need, even though her family has been threatened. They've received death threats. They've heard gunshots. There's dozens of tents in their backyard, and she's called the police 40 times. Despite her family being threatened, she still wants these people to have all the resources they need, and they want the taxpayer to pay for it. Spoken like a true lib. She doesn't want it on her property, though. Oh, no. You take them over there, take the taxpayers' money, give them everything they need. I just don't want them in my backyard. Okay, spoken like a true lib. She believes the problem is, quote, these people don't have anywhere to go. These people don't have someplace to go. So they say the more educated one is, the more likely they're going to vote Democrat. It's unclear how educated one has to be before they realize you can't house your way out of this. I've told you time and time again, this is not a housing issue. This is a rampant drug abuse issue. These people choose to live this way because it's the easiest way to feed their addiction. I wish the Bach family the best of luck in selling their home, but at this point, you probably couldn't even pay somebody to live there. So good luck, Bach family. You brought this on yourself if you voted Democrat, and likely you did. Okay, so despite opposition, this bill creates a certified medication aid program. Now, this is from the Center Square. This bill passed both chambers in the Illinois legislature and awaits the governor's signature. He's likely going to sign it, JB. Now, here's the thing that I fear. It could burden nurses even further, and this could mean fewer jobs, actually, for Black nurses. And that wasn't something that I'm just bringing up. Democrats in the state legislature have brought up, hey, this could actually mean, no more jobs for the Black nurses out there. It had opposition. The Illinois Nurses Association, this bill did. Proponents say, hey, this is going to help the nurses associate or nurse shortage that we're having here in the state. But also the Chicago chapter of National Black Nurses Association, the Black nurses, they have opposed to this. So here's the thing I noticed. I typically don't go to the doctor. I go once in a while. Just this past week, I went in for a couple of checkups, right? So I noticed every single time I went in, it was like I never saw a doctor. I went to the doctor, wanted to schedule an appointment with the doctor, but couldn't get in to see an actual doctor. It was a nurse practitioner, a registered nurse, a CNA that I was working with here. And I'd imagine you go through the same problem. Okay, you go to the doctor, you make a doctor's appointment if you can get in like within the next 3 weeks, 4 weeks. It takes forever to even get an appointment anywhere. But I think the problem is here, they pulled this little stunt with the nurse practitioners. And I love nurse practitioners. I'm not ripping on nurse practitioners. I think they're great people. However, you're going to start seeing that doctors are not in our hospitals anymore. And you're going to start seeing more and more nurse practitioners. Why? Because it's cheaper, one, to have them on. Two, we don't value excellence anymore. And nobody really wants to become a doctor because it takes a lot of work and a lot of excellence to become a doctor. Takes a lot of work to be a nurse practitioner too, just not as much. And that's not me. That's the criteria of how to become a nurse or a nurse practitioner. You don't need as much hours. So with this bill, it creates a CMA program. This is a certified nurses program. The Illinois Department of Public Health, they're going to administer and enforce this program. So what's going to wind up happening is you're going to have a bunch of CMAs, and the registered nurses have to supervise these CMAs, and they're going to be able to administer medications under the supervision of a registered nurse. And people are worried. They're like, wait a second, does this mean that there's not going to be a whole lot of registered nurses anymore? Are they going to cut those jobs? Realistically, probably, yes. They're going to be more of an administration role. And you're seeing this play out in the country where you've got administration roles and nobody actually wants to be in the hospital. There's actually remote nurses out there. They don't have to go to the hospital. They don't have to see patients. It's all telehealth, and they all do it from behind a desk, behind a computer, and they're going to have the CMAs do the grunt work, and they're not going to be paid as well. So you see the problem here, right? There is a lack of excellence. Now, the CMAs, they don't have to go near the amount of education. I think it's like 60 hours that they have to have. And Republicans voted for this thing, by the way. And, I get it. You want to address the nurse shortage. But the reason why we have the nurse shortage is because they did the same thing with the doctors. So this nurse practitioner thing is very new. It's not old. They created the nurse practitioner because they wanted to address the doctor shortage. We didn't have enough doctors. And this way, we'll be able to have more nurse practitioners and people who can do the same thing a doctor can do, but they just don't have the same level of education. And I mean, it's sad because we're not going to have the level of care that we should in our hospitals and in our health institutions. So I just think it's terrible. State Senator Willie Preston, a Democrat out of Chicago, by the way, pointed out the opposition of the Chicago chapter of National Black Nurses Association. And Doris Turner said that the association felt that the medication aides would be taking away jobs from the registered nurses. Yeah, because as a hospital, you're going to hire the person who can do the same thing a registered nurse can do, essentially. And then they're going to make the registered nurses this administrative role where they, supervise the CMAs. So it's this attack on excellence. That's why we don't see as many nurses as we should. That's why we don't see the doctor. I mean, let me know in the comments section, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Rumble. When you go to the doctor, do you actually see a doctor? Like, the phrase is go to the doctor. I bet you don't even get to see a doctor. I bet it's a nurse practitioner. Same thing as here. You might not even see a registered nurse the next time you go to the hospital. You just might be a CNA or a CMA now with this program. So I'm going to take a quick break. We're going to be back. Next, I want to talk about not even 10 years ago. If you said the military would be paying for Botox, laser hair removal, lip injections, people would look at you like you were insane. But here we are in 2024, and your tax dollars are being spent on this kind of stuff. The laser hair removal is what gets me, you know, and your tax dollars are being spent on this. And if you're mad about it, if you're upset about it, you're going to be called a bigot. You're going to be called a bigot. So next, I'm going to tell you a little bit about a trans TikToker. This video is circulating on social media. He serves in the military, and he's so glad he's living in 2024 because he gets his lip injections, his laser hair removal, and his Botox all paid for by your tax dollars. So I'm going to be back next. This is Conservative Cat on Cities 92.9, the news and talk of Bloomington Normal. All right, folks. Good morning. Hey, I appreciate you tuning into the stream. Like this video, subscribe to the YouTube channel. Hi, kiddo. So happy to see that you're back on air. How you been? You're looking so good. Oh, thank you so much. I appreciate it, Henry. I see an NP at the VA. Yes. So let me ask you, I think this is Bob. Love your new name, by the way. So let me ask you, have you ever wanted to see a doctor and not been able to see a doctor at the VA? And that's just it. You know, if that's the case, if you've wanted to see a doctor and you can't see a doctor because they just give you the nurse practitioner, it sucks. That really sucks. And that shouldn't be happening, especially to the veterans, right? And I appreciate your service. So doctors cannot practice the way they want to because of the social government involvement. Yes. Well, there's not even doctors because of the social government. So this is an attack on excellence. They've created these nurse practitioners. That's what these people are. And I love nurse practitioners. I think they're great people. Love them, love them, love them, love them. Love the registered nurses, love CNAs, love anybody who is in the health profession, unless you administered the COVID-19 vaccine. Then we've got some beef. But no, these people work very hard. However, the government is baking it into the cake where you will never be able to see a doctor. You will never even be able to see a registered nurse. Now, these doctors are essentially these administrative figures, and they dictate their terms to the registered nurses or the nurse practitioners, and the nurse practitioners are the ones who interface with the patients. Never used to be that way. You would go to the doctor, and the nurse would come in, check your vitals, then the doctor would come in. That's typically how it goes. But if you go through any kind of healthcare, issue or doctor or try to get, you'll see what I'm talking about. Okay, so I used to have a doctor at the VA. Now you have an NP, nurse practitioner. So what you need to know is that these nurse practitioners, they don't have nearly the level of training as a doctor. A doctor goes to school for 8+ years, and a nurse practitioner does not go for that long. They don't have nearly as many training hours, and they aren't as qualified as a doctor. Not to say they're not qualified, but they're not as qualified as a doctor. And we should be having excellence in our hospitals and in our healthcare institutions, and we don't. So pretty soon what you're going to see is that, like the doctors, registered nurses are going to be in this administrative role with this CMA program. They're going to be at home delegating to the CMA, which is an extra burden onto the nurse that they probably won't get paid for. They might get a small boost in pay for being an administrator of some kind, but they're going to be administrating from behind the computer with the patient. They're going to have a list. They're going to communicate with the CMA, and they're going to be at home, okay, and not interfacing with the patient. Although they have way more training than the CMA. The CMA is going to be the one who gives you your medicine, checks your vitals, all these things. And they have more training than a CNA, but they will have way less training than an RN, a registered nurse. And you likely won't even see a registered nurse in your time at a hospital or in your time at a doctor's office. Likely you're going to see CMAs and nurse practitioners, and that's who you get. You don't get the registered nurses and the doctors anymore because there's an attack on excellence. It's probably multiple things, but anyway. Woohoo! Good morning. This is Conservative Cat on Cities 92.9, the news and talk of Bloomington Normal. We've got so much to get to. So first, not even 10 years ago, if you were to tell somebody, if you said the military was going to pay for Botox, laser hair removal, lip injections, and I love our veterans. I do. I love our veterans. Do I think we should be paying for somebody's laser hair removal? No. Do I think we should be paying for Botox? No. Okay. Love our veterans. But these cosmetic surgeries just don't make sense. Okay. And I'd say that for somebody who isn't trans. But we're going to get into this story because here in 2024, if you were to object to your tax dollars being spent on laser hair removal, lip injections, Botox, you'd be considered a bigot. So this trans TikToker, and he's in the military, he's on social media, and he made a video and he's talking about how happy he is to be serving in our military in a time where he's has these medically unnecessary medical procedures, okay? Whereas medically unnecessary, these are unnecessary procedures. Botox, you don't need that. That is not necessary, okay, to your health. For women, for trans people, it's just not necessary, okay? Botox is not necessary for your medical health. And these medical procedures are being covered by the government, okay? So I'm going to get to this video here coming up in just a little bit. And next, I do want to talk about the November 5th election, because ahead of this election, and you need to know this because this is a recently enacted law, and it's got multiple provisions in it regarding our elections, and it's impacting our elections. Now, one provision that I really want to talk about is that parties, so Illinois Republican Party, the Illinois Republican Party, the Illinois Democrat Party, they can funnel money in to political or to these politicians' pockets unlimited. Okay, it used to be in primaries, you had caps. They were very, very high caps, by the way. So I don't understand why we need to make them unlimited. I can't remember the caps off the top of my head, but it's thousands and thousands of dollars, more money than you and I could ever dream of. Okay, so these politicians had plenty of money funneled into their pockets and lining their pockets from the political parties. We are going to make these parties more powerful than they already are by allowing them to just give unlimited campaign money to politicians. Okay, so through a bill that they gutted and replaced, they just, and I'll get into it, it's just incredible what goes on. But through a bill, they've made it to where parties can spend unlimited campaign money on politicians in both general and primary elections. So I'm going to talk about how that impacts you later. If you needed a real-time example to illustrate to your friends how much the media sucks at life and has earned this well-earned, it is a well-earned reputation that they are the least trusted institution in America. These past 2 weeks have been amazing, okay? These last 2 weeks. You want to know why the media sucks? Just look at the last 2 weeks, okay? We've gone from quoting George Orwell as the media attacked us on the right for quoting George Orwell, and believing our eyes and ears. Okay, we see Joe Biden. We see what a mess he is. We see how senile he is. Now that Jake Tapper is using the same quote against Biden, now that the media has gotten permission or the green light, and or they were forced into this position where they can't pretend anymore that Joe isn't senile. So Jake Tapper is saying the same thing the right is, and all of a sudden it's okay. But the right said it 2 weeks ago. All right, folks, we got to take a quick break. This is Conservative Cat, Cities 92.9. Woohoo! Good morning. I appreciate y'all tuning in. Be sure to subscribe, hit that like button, share this video out with your friends. We're going to be back. I do want to talk about this. This is a real life example. At best, this illustrates just how crappy the media is. Okay, the last 2 weeks have chef's kiss illustrated how badly, how terrible they are. Okay, so we on the right, conservative media, people on the right, we talked about the cheap fakes. Okay, I'm going to get into it here. The cheap fakes. Kieran Jean-Pierre, who is Black and lesbian, by the way, that's important. I bring that up. She came out and she said, hey, don't believe what you see and don't believe what you hear. All that is cheap fakes. Okay, Joe Biden falling down the stair, cheap fake. Which I don't even know exactly what that means. Cheap fake, what the hell does that mean? What's your definition of a cheap fake? What does that mean, Kieran Jean-Pierre, press secretary? So she said, don't believe what you hear or see with your eyes. Now, this is a famous George Orwell quote, okay? The dystopian novel, right, where they say, this is their greatest weapon. They will tell you not to believe what you hear and what you see with your eyes. What you hear with your ears and what you see with your eyes. They'll say that don't believe that. So we all said that 2 weeks ago after Kieran Jean-Pierre said, hey, the cheap fake thing. And Jake Tapper, CNN's Jake Tapper, comes out a couple weeks after us and says the same quote and uses the same quote against Biden. Now that the media has gotten permission and or they were forced into a position where they can't pretend anymore after that debate. Okay, so after the debate, all of a sudden everybody noticed Joe Biden's condition. His senile, diaper wearing, pooping pants ass, right? Okay, so all of a sudden everybody agrees that Joe Biden is senile. They got permission or they were forced into a position where they couldn't pretend anymore after the debate. So I want to go through actually a timeline of just the gaslighting and, what we have seen in the media. It starts back in 2021, from 2021, January 20th, 2021, all the way through June 17th, 2024. Every other day or so, we'd see a video of Joe Biden looking like he doesn't know where he's at. It's progressively gotten worse. There's videos out there where I'm convinced he actually pooped his pants. He fell down a lot, the stairs, fell off his bike. And during this time, you can see his brain go from 50% pudding to about 69% pudding. Okay, that's from 2021 to 2024, June 2024, you're starting to see more and more his brain is just becoming pudding, okay? So it affected his reelection efforts as he consistently pulled behind a guy that Democrats have convicted of 34 bookkeeping errors, essentially. So we're seeing it. He's pulling behind Donald Trump. Okay, so this is affecting these videos of him just out being him, being senile Joe Biden. It's affecting his reelection campaign. So naturally, Kieran Jean-Pierre, on June 18th of this year, June 18th of this year. She was standing behind the White House podium, and she gives these journalismers, these journalists, I don't like to call them journalists because they're not really journalists. These are not people of integrity. So I call them journalismers. She says, hey, I'm giving you orders. These are cheap fakes. Refer to these videos as cheap fakes. And for about a week or so, they, marching orders. They took orders from the pissant, Kieran Jean-Pierre. So for about 7 days or so, the media did exactly what the White House told them to do. Then the debate happens. Embarrassed that they were all exposed, the media leading the charge of saying Biden needs to drop out of this race. Suddenly there are people on CNN, Jake Tapper, saying the exact same the right did just 2 weeks prior. Okay. So yeah, I do want to talk about that. We are going to talk about this TikToker in the military. He's getting laser hair removal, lip injections, Botox, paid for by your tax dollars. That's next on the Morning Buzz. If you're on Conservative Cat, we've renamed the show Conservative Cat on Cities 92.9 if you want to tune into the radio. But we'll be back. Hang out for just a bit. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. Have you ever seen like a doctor, or do you usually see like a licensed nurse practitioner? A nurse practitioner. I've actually got a veteran here. Thank you for your service, Bob. I see a nurse practitioner at the VA. I used to see a doctor at the VA, but now I see a nurse practitioner. It's an attack on excellence, folks. Pretty soon, our hospitals, our doctors' offices will not be filled with doctors and nurses, your traditional RNs and doctors. No. It's going to be these like in between positions, I like to call them, the nurse practitioners and those are going to replace the doctors. And then you're going to see CMAs. These are certified medication aides. You're going to see them replace the registered nurses in our healthcare institutions. And it's an attack on excellence. I appreciate nurse practitioners. This is not an attack on CNAs, CMAs, nurses, nurse practitioners. What I'm saying is the facts are the facts. A registered nurse has more education, more training than a CMA will through this program. A doctor has more education, more training than a nurse practitioner. We should have the utmost excellence in care when we go to hospitals in this country. But we don't because the government creates bills like this, Senate Bill 1779, and they create these, CMA programs or these nurse practitioner programs, and it undermines our excellence in these institutions, and it's disturbing. Okay, I do want to shift gears. Let's talk a little bit about the military paying for Botox, laser hair removal, lip injections. If you were to say this 10 years ago, people would look at you like you were insane. Okay, wait a second. The military is paying for Botox? Here we are in 2024, and if you were to object to your tax dollars being used for Botox, you're considered a bigot. Okay, so a TikTok video is circulating on social media. And I'm going to play this video here in a second, but it's of a man. Okay, this is a man dressed as a woman, pretending to be a woman. It's a transvestite. And this video is circulating on social media, and he's talking about how happy he is to be serving in the military during a time where his medically unnecessary medical procedures like Botox are being covered by tax dollars. So, play the clip, Chris. If we've got it. If not, that's okay. This guy, essentially what he says in the video is that he's so happy to have this this laser hair removal, this Botox surgery available to him at no cost to him. Okay, but it's at the cost of the taxpayer. So you and I pay for his laser hair removal. In case you were wondering, no, women who were born a woman, so me, if I was in the military, I can't get these things, okay? Because Botox is only a trans right, okay, not a human right. Because you can't have equal rights when you have trans rights, only special rights. Okay, so they're not equal rights. If I was a woman in the military, I couldn't get Botox. I couldn't get laser hair removal, okay? So can someone remind me again how anti-aging injections affirm the feelings of trans people? Because I don't understand, like, okay, you want to change what's in between your legs through gender-affirming surgery. You want breast enhancement, okay? I could see how that affirms your gender, maybe. But anti-aging injections like lip injections or Botox, how exactly does that affirm your feelings? I don't know. As a trans individual, like, how does that make you feel more feminine? They're anti-aging medical procedures, okay? So it's unclear if the US military knows that by being inclusive to trans people, they're actually excluding the majority of the military population from getting these procedures. But that's neither here nor there, okay? So they're actually excluding women, men who want Botox, okay? I know plenty of men who want Botox. This guy in the military, this trans individual who touted his medical procedures on TikTok, they're lowering his hairline. I know plenty of men who would want hair plugs, but it costs $10,000 for hair plugs, right? But this guy gets it. Why? Because he identifies as transgender? So you're being exclusive of the majority of the military population to be inclusive to these trans people. So if a woman has a condition where, and women get this, you'll get like a little mustache. I'm a little Italian, so I've got a really, like, my brows get a little bushy, right? I'm Italian, and if you know anything about Italians, they're got hair everywhere, and some women would love laser hair removal in the military. I know women who go, they pay hundreds of dollars to go and get laser hair removal, or they go get their brows done. It's medically unnecessary, okay? If a woman, if she has, maybe a little bit of hair on her lip and she wants to go get it removed, and she's in the military and she wants to feel more feminine, okay? That is not a procedure that's afforded to her. This medically unnecessary procedure is only afforded to men who feel some sort of way, which is just it's just disgusting. Some women genuinely feel less feminine because of this condition where they might have some hair on their lip, maybe some hair on their chin. That's an actual medical condition. Insurance would laugh in their face if they thought about getting laser hair removal and trying to get insurance to pay for something like that. Okay, there are a lot of women out there who have baldness, where they have a receding hairline. They'd like to go and get some hair plugs, but it's not affordable. Okay, there's plenty of women who don't get those surgical interventions to help them feel more feminine because it's not affordable. But because you are, feel some sort of way, and you're not a real woman, Okay. These real women who are born that way don't get afforded these surgeries. They're only afforded to men who feel a certain way about themselves. So the military doesn't even allow people with a history of anxiety to enroll, to enlist in the military. Okay. If you have a history of anxiety, you can't be in the military. Yet somehow they're able to recruit members who are part of a group where nearly 60% of those people are diagnosed with some sort of psychiatric disorder. If you're trans, chances are you are going to be diagnosed with some sort of psychiatric disorder on top of being transgender, because I believe being transgender is a psychiatric disorder. Okay, so on top of your trans disorder, you will be diagnosed with some sort of, likely, statistically, you will be diagnosed with some sort of psychiatric disorder. So I'm not sure how they're even recruiting these members or enrolling these members into the military, because from what I understand, even if you have a history of anxiety, you can't enroll in the military, but somehow these people are. What could go wrong? We're enlisting and enrolling these people who have a high suicide rate, nearly 60% of the population. They're diagnosed with at least one other psychiatric disorder. What could go wrong? I could tell you, a million things could go wrong if we're putting people in the military with psychiatric disorders and dysfunctions. So maybe one day the Department of Defense will focus on military excellence. As I talked about before, there's this attack on excellence. Our military should be excellent, and that's nothing to be ashamed of. Having excellence is a good thing. Maybe one day our Department of Defense will get their heads out of their butts and they'll focus on military excellence, because this guy, no, he is not. He's touting these medically unnecessary medical procedures that are being covered with your taxpayer dollars on social media. Disturbing. All right, I do want to shift gears. I want to talk about this bill in Illinois. State legislators, they approved this measure. Governor J.B. Pritzker enacted it into law. So this is a law in Illinois. It is the law of the land. Now, this was an omnibus election bill, so there's a lot of things in it. But one thing I want to talk about today, just one thing. The Democrat Party of Illinois and the Illinois Republicans, or the Republican Party, okay, the Democrat Party and the Republican Party. I never donate to these parties. You guys know, I'm going to be honest with you. I'm a Republican. I've voted Republican always. I've never donated to the Illinois House Republican organization. I don't donate to parties. If anything, I would donate to my local Republican Party, but I don't donate to the state one. I donate to traditional campaigns, grassroots campaigns that I actually believe in. Okay. Now, what they're going to do, these two parties, these two entities, they're going to funnel unlimited campaign dollars into the pockets, into the candidates' war chests for both primary and general elections. It used to just be the general elections, but now they include the primaries. So they are going to get more powerful. Make no mistake. These parties are going to be more, you are beholden to the party if you are a politician at this point. Because of the money. So it's incredible to go, and I go and check it out on Reform for Illinois. It's illinoissunshine.org. I highly recommend that website. I check out all the state representatives and the state senators and see how much is in their war chest and who their top donors are. 9 times out of 10, the Illinois Democrat Party is the top donor for Democrat politicians. If they're not the top donor, then they're like third or fourth, and then it's a bunch of government unions who are funneling money into the Illinois politicians' campaign war chest, okay? But 9 times out of 10, they are the top donor. If not, they're like the third or fourth one. When you look at Republicans and who donates to Republicans traditionally, a lot of the time it's individuals or like businesses or groups or associations, or not unions, but a lot of times it's just individuals who donate to their campaigns. And I have never really seen the top donor in being the Illinois Republican Party for a candidate. I've never really seen that. I look at the site quite often. I check out all of the politicians on my ballot, and I've never seen where the Republican Party is the top donor. So this is definitely going to enhance the other side, the Democrat side of the aisle. This is going to be beneficial to them. State Representative Blaine Wilhauer on the House floor, he says, look, were these political parties not powerful enough? We're going to give them more power. We're going to allow them to funnel money into politicians' pockets and give them more power. And the sponsor of the bill, Democrat Morris West, he says, oh, no, we're not going to make them more powerful. What do you mean? Money is power, my guy. You're going to make them more powerful. And what this weird explanation was of his was, hey, we're just going to, even out the scales here. It used to be where general elections, they got all of the campaign monies or unlimited campaign funding. In general election, candidates did. But now we're just extending it out to primary elections. We're just making it equal equity, right? So I'm going to tell you a little bit more about House Bill 4488. This is the contribution caps were removed in the primary races for the candidates. So I'm going to talk a little bit more about it. I got to take a break. Find me on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and Rumble. This is Conservative Cat, 6 to 8 a.m. on Cities 92.9, the news and talk of Bloomington Normal. Woohoo! Hey, good morning. I appreciate you all tuning in. How's the audio? Let me know in the comments section. Is it coming in clear? We set up the studio. It's working out great. I think it's great. Okay, so we've got. I wanted to share this. I have a family in the military, and they don't even have eye care or eye coverage or dental coverage. Okay, that stuff is medically necessary, right? You need to be able to see, you need to be able to eat and use your mouth, right? So that I would deem medically necessary. But we have a nation who can afford to pay for hair removal and injections, lip injections, that are not medically necessary. Our priorities, yeah, are really misplaced. I could not agree more. Yeah, it's terrible. I wanted to make sure I got to all of your comments. Be sure to subscribe, share this out with your friends, like the video. When we come back, I'm going to be continuing our conversation about House Bill 4488. Center Square has the article. You can find it there. House Bill 4488 originally was going to establish a Crohn's and Colitis Awareness Week, but later was getting replaced with an election omnibus bill. So this was like gutted, replaced, not as hastily as the Senate Bill 2412. And this is a bill that was originally about child welfare. And this bill was gutted and replaced, and they put in a slating change for candidates. So you can no longer slate candidates in the primaries. So they're changing up our elections. They're baking it into the cake. I think this is because they're freaking out because they know that this is a pivotal election, and they know they're freaking out. They're starting to like sweat. So they baked things into the cake. This legislative session, this bill, Senate Bill 2412, changes the rules for slating candidates to fill vacancies. That law is currently under a microscope by the Illinois Supreme Court. Candidates like Leslie Collazo, she filed this lawsuit, and a slew of candidates filed this lawsuit challenging this Illinois hastily changed law. Right now, there's like a stay on it, an injunction. It can't be enforced, this law. Now, I do want to talk about, what these unlimited funds with House Bill 4488 means. It means that the establishment is going to get stronger, and it means that there's not going to be a fair shake to newcomers, okay? People who haven't been in the party, people who are grassroots. Good morning. This is the Morning Buzz. I so do appreciate you tuning in, or this Conservative Cat, Cities 92.9, from 6 to 8 a.m. We've got so much to talk about. I was telling you a little bit about this House Bill 4488. Now, this is an Illinois bill, and it originally was going to establish a Crohn's and Colitis Awareness Week, but it was gutted and replaced with an elections omnibus bill. Okay, so there's lots of things that impact our elections in this bill. One thing that I've been talking about is the change to campaign funds and how the parties, the two political apparatuses, the Democrat Party and the Illinois Republican Party, how they contribute campaign funds to candidates. So with unlimited campaign contributions in the primary, this is going to make these entities stronger than they already are, more powerful than they already are, because these candidates are going to be beholden to the party and what the party wants for the state, and not necessarily what is representative of the people who live in the great state of Illinois. This is going to also extend to the Illinois Supreme Court. So already these caps were very, very high. You could donate tons of money to Illinois Supreme Court justices, people who were running for the Illinois Supreme Court. So these campaign contributions caps were very high. They've removed the caps in both the primaries and the general elections. Also, this legislative session, it's important to note, there was another bill where they changed the rules to filling vacancies. So it used to be where you could fill vacancies, you get more choices on the ballot. That law is currently under the microscope of the Illinois Supreme Court. candidates, they filed a lawsuit challenging this hastily changed bill because that bill was also gutted and replaced. It had something to do with originally it was a child welfare bill, but they gutted, replaced it, and changed the rules for the slating process in our election. So you see what's happening here. They're freaking out. They're coming up with all this legislation to change our elections. Unlimited funds in the primary, what it's going to do, it really only helps the establishment, and it doesn't help the grassroots candidates, maybe people who haven't been a part of the party. Say you're a Republican, you vote Republican, but you've never really donated to the Illinois Republican Party. You're not really a part of the party. You're just a guy. You're just a guy. You're a grassroots guy. You're a normal person. And you will not be chosen to run in the primary, and you will not be given those financial benefits and those campaign funds as a newcomer to this political system. So it's a terrible bill. It's going to have significant impacts, and it's going to enable the party's leaders. Okay, so the Illinois Democrat Party leaders and the Illinois Republican leaders to have even more control over our primary elections and who gets into office. And primary elections, they're really only they're the only meaningful contest in the state. Okay, because there's so many uncontested districts statewide. Democrats just have such a stronghold in this state. So I think it's terrible, this bill, and it's really going to change up our elections. I do want to talk about this timeline. I've taken some time. I've created a timeline to show you how much the media just lies to you and gaslights you. So from from January of 2021, when Joe Biden took office, all the way through June of 2024, I'm going to walk you through this timeline. If you ever needed a real life example, real time example to illustrate to your friends how much the media sucks at life and how they've earned, or they have gotten a well-earned reputation as the least trusted institution in America, these past 2 weeks, I'm going to go through it with you here on the other side. This is Conservative Cat, Cities 92.9, the news and talk of Bloomington Normal. Come right back. Good morning. This is the Conservative Cat Show on Cities 92.9. Be sure to head on out to Seats for Soldiers. Tomorrow, I'll be at the Corn Crib in Normal. We're going to be there for 36 hours. We'll be raising money, and by putting up flags on the backs of seats at the Corn Crib, $10 buys you a flag, and together we're going to raise hopefully $25,000, hopefully more than that, for Hope for the Warriors. You can text your donation right now. Text your donation into Jimmy John's Freaky Fast text line by texting SEATS, SEATS, to 309-451-9299. Thank you so much from SEFQ, Miller Lite, Tentec Enterprises, Four Seasons Health Club, Jackson County Plus, High Haven, McLean County Asphalt. We appreciate our sponsors. We appreciate them being sponsors of this event. It's going to be 36 hours we're out there, so be sure to come out and see us July 10th through the 11th at the Corn Crib in Normal. All right, so before we took the break, I was telling you guys a little bit about the media. Okay, so these past couple of weeks have been absolutely amazing. It's the perfect example. If you want an example for your friends, you want to be able to tell your friends, hey, this is why the media sucks. This is why they have earned, really, it's a well-earned reputation. This is why they have the reputation of being the least trusted institution in America. So I'm going to take you through a timeline. Stay with me. From January of 2021 all the way through June 17th of 2024, every day or so, we've seen a video of Joe Biden looking like he doesn't know where he is. All these people, get him into a room. I don't know how these people do it, but they managed to get him into a room, prop him up there behind a podium. And I mean, I think I've actually seen a video. Now, I can't prove this, so this is my opinion. He looks like he poops his pants in some of these videos, okay, that I see. He doesn't know where he's at. I'm convinced he's out there pooping his pants at these NATO summits, at these in front of world leaders. He's fallen down a lot. We saw him fall off his bike. We saw him fall down the stairs. During this time, from January of 2021 through June 17th of 2024, his brain, I think went from 50% pudding to about 69% pudding. During this time, I think that progressively, he just is getting more pudding brain. Okay, that's, just look at the videos, right? So this, of course, is going to affect and is affecting his reelection efforts. He consistently is pulling behind the guy Democrats have convicted of 34 bookkeeping errors. Okay, that's what they are. They're bookkeeping errors, if that. He's pulling behind Donald Trump. Okay, so he's losing. Now, on June 18th of 2024, Karine Jean-Pierre, that little pissant, she got out there behind the White House podium, and she gave these journalismers, I don't call them journalists because that is a term of integrity, and these people have no integrity. So she gave these journalismers marching orders to refer to these videos of Joe Biden falling down as cheap fakes. You remember this. Cheap fakes. I don't know what the hell that means, but a cheap fake. If you can define it for me, go ahead, text me, 309-451-9299, or throw it in the comments section. What is a cheap fake? Here's the best definition that I can come up with. Any unedited video of Joe Biden and his cognitive decline that the Biden administration does not want the public to see. That's the best way I can describe and define what cheap fake means. Okay, so Karine Jean-Pierre, she gets out there and she gives the journalismers marching orders. Hey, refer to these videos as cheap fakes. Okay, so fast forward to June 19th, just a day after she says this, all the way through June 26th of this year. Okay, you look at this week. For 7 days, the media did exactly what the White House told them to do. Conservatives, Trump supporters, and all the other sects on the right. We brought out this George Orwell quote, okay, from 1984. It's a great book. If you haven't read it, read it. Here's the quote. The party told you to reject the evidence of your eyes and ears. Whatever you see, whatever you hear, reject that. Okay? It was their final and most essential command. Okay, so we said that when Kieran Jean-Pierre came out with the cheap fake orders and ordered these journalismers to say, hey, these are just cheap fakes of Joe Biden. We said, look, the Democrat Party, is telling you to reject the evidence. And this is their final and most essential command. We said that on the right. The debate happens June 27th, okay, 2024, the debate happened. Then June 27th through July 1st, okay, now we're up to speed here. They were embarrassed. The media was embarrassed. They were exposed after that debate. The media, they have been leading the charge in saying that Joe Biden needs to drop out. Suddenly, the quotes from George Orwell are being reiterated by CNN's Jake Tapper. Jake Tapper said the same thing the right said 2 weeks ago. Okay, so, they are anonymous quotes that Joe Biden behind the scenes is just as bad as Joe Biden and as the Joe Biden we see on camera. Okay, so there's these anonymous quotes coming from the Biden administration saying that Joe Biden is just as bad. In fact, he's worse off camera. So we're starting to see this in articles like Politico, and the left is just coming out and they are leading the charge in getting Joe Biden and trying to get Joe Biden to drop out of the race. Okay. So the things they couldn't be honest about because it would mean helping Donald Trump, they suddenly could be honest about. And the word cheap fake was gone forever, okay? The media referred to these videos as cheap fakes for an entire week after Kieran Jean-Pierre told them to. The media referred to it as cheap fake. No one in the media acknowledges shilling for the White House by using the word cheap fake for these videos that turned out to be not cheap and not fake. The word is just poof, gone from their vocabulary. Okay, they referred to these for an entire week as cheap fakes, these videos, but now all of a sudden they're real? CNN Jake Tapper, he literally comes out and he repeats the same George Orwell line. He says, quote, this is Jake Tapper on CNN, July 1st. The spinning is all very reminiscent of the George Orwell quote from the book 1984. It's relevant again today. The party told you to reject the evidence of your eyes and ears. It was their final, most essential commandment. If Joe Biden decides to stop pretending and drop out of the race, Kamala Harris is next in line, folks. And the Trump campaign is wasting. They are not wasting any time reminding Americans how terrible the Biden-Harris campaign really, or how Kamala Harris is. And they released a couple ads over the weekend. Now, one can argue the main reason Biden is still running and Kamala Harris is even, less likable than him. She only got picked to be his running mate because of her gender and skin color, which would be one thing. But much like with this press secretary, transportation secretary, assistant health secretary, instead of looking for someone who checks all the boxes and is competent and qualified, Biden went for the first Black woman he saw. Okay, so that's why she got picked. And we all know that. Everybody knows that. And she's less likable than him because he's shockingly, and Joe Biden is not qualified by any means. Don't mistake me when I say that Joe Biden isn't qualified by any means. Kamala Harris is even less qualified than him because she was only picked to be his running mate because of her gender and her race, her skin color. Okay, much like everybody else in the Biden administration. So the one who during the 2020 Democrat primaries called Biden a racist, by the way, who probably sexually assaulted his aide. So this is actually Joe Biden, Kamala Harris during the primaries, the 2020 Democrat primaries, she came out and called Joe Biden racist and said that he probably sexually assaulted his aide. So Kamala Harris came out with this really cringy ad and They're really trying to get Joe Biden out there, and they're trying to squash this media frenzy where they're trying to get him to drop out. Team Trump, they are not waiting. They were quick to release some of these ads against Kamala Harris because I think that they're trying to get a jump. I don't know, to be honest with you, I don't know if Joe Biden is going to make it to November 5th. I just don't know if he's going to. So the Trump team, they're trying to get a jump on it. And, she's so unpleasant. She just cackles, and I think that she will wind up, if he does not fall over, he will remain the candidate. I really do think that. I think it's too late. I don't know if they're going to come in last minute with a Gavin Newsom, a JB Pritzker, God forbid, but we'll have to see. Kamala, she might have to wait a few more years because Axios is reporting that a massive political PR and personal campaign is underway to reject these calls for Joe Biden to drop out of the election race and rally Democrats to move on from this public debate about his age and future, if he's able to do the job and if he has cognitive disabilities. So there is a massive political PR campaign going out there right now, and Axios has reported it. So we'll have to see. Kamala, she has got this weird, very unique communication skills. And she says things that make you wonder what the heck she's talking about, And the difference between her and Joe Biden, like, I don't know what Joe Biden ever talks about, but the difference between her and Joe Biden is that she doesn't really have dementia to blame on the whole thing. Okay. At least Joe Biden's got dementia to blame on the whole thing. All right. I do have to take a quick break. You're listening to Conservative Cat. When we come back, that's going to be the last segment of the show. Folks, don't forget, tomorrow morning, July 10th, we're going to be out at the Corn Crib for Seats for Soldiers. Be sure to text your donation right now to the Jimmy John's Freaky Fast text line by texting SEATS 309-451-9299. Text that word to 309-451-9299. I'll be right back. Hey, this is Conservative Cat on Seduce 92.9. I so do appreciate you tuning in each and every morning from 6 to 8 a.m. We're going to be out at the Corn Crib for the next 36 hours, July 10th through the 11th. And we're going to be raising money by putting seats up on flags, or by putting flags up on seats, and $10 buys you a flag. And together we're going to raise $25,000 for Hope for the Warriors. And you can text your donation into the Jimmy John's Freaky Fast text line by texting the word seats to 309-451-9299. Thank you, Seth Q. Thank you, Miller Light, Tentak. Appreciate you guys. Before we took the break, I was telling you guys a little bit about Joe Biden. Okay, so Joe Biden, as of right now, it is July 9th, 2024. And Joe Biden is still running for president. And I think that maybe one day we're going to wake up to the news that he's stepping down, or to the news that, unfortunately, maybe he's passed. I don't know. I don't think that he's going. I mean, if we watch the same debate, I don't know if he's going to make it to November 5th. But as sure as you're hearing my voice right now, he is still pretending that he is the candidate. Some people have been calling for him to convince us that he's not in cognitive decline. We've been calling for cognitive test. I'd love to see him take a cognitive test. His caregiver, Jill Biden, has been campaigning for him, by the way. He's been kind of like avoiding the press. He hasn't been out there a whole lot since the debate. He's calling people. He needs to convince right now that he's still alive, the donors, and he's calling them up right now. And he's like, no, I'm still alive. I'm here. And I'm going to be the candidate. He's out there doing that. And Jill Biden is out there campaigning for him. Did you guys see her in that dress, the vote dress? I'm like, what is that? Did you just take a bunch of campaign literature and just slap it all over yourself? But she's out there campaigning for him. And to Jill's surprise, the media is actually doing this weird thing. And usually they only, reserve this for Republican candidates, but they're asking questions that Jill doesn't really like. Okay, so she got out there and she said this, quote, Joe has made it clear he's all in. And I'm all in too. And she got all upset when she was asked if he's still running for re-election. So Dr. Jill Biden, who is not running for president, is on the campaign trail making sure that that she means he, is still running for re-election. Okay, so Jill, she says this, Joe has made it clear that he's all in and I'm all in too. Okay, that's what she said. Look, folks, I love this tweet. This is from Katie Rogers. She goes, caught one Biden voter walking away from Jill Biden's event, putting her hand on her chest and saying to her mom, okay, that felt good. We're good. One of several here at this rally, at this campaign rally, who said they came to see the First Lady and determine from her energy if Joe Biden was still in the race. So they determined that Joe Biden is still in the race from her energy. So she's out there campaigning. And now this is giving, I think, a false hope to Biden voters. They think that, if Jill is out there, with such zeal saying he's okay, he's got to be okay. No, Jill does not have the best interest of Joe Biden at heart. Okay, so she's out there and she's running for the presidency. Joe Biden is not going to be president if somehow he manages to win in 2024, which I doubt he will. But that's going to be Jill. Jill is the one who's actually running. Okay, so we've got to. That's the show. We're wrapping up the show here. I appreciate you tuning in. The media, they have been carrying water and they've been lying on the Biden's behalf for years now. And it just took 1 week, really, after the debate performance, to turn the narrative all around. So it's going to be interesting to see how this all unfolds. Folks, that's going to be the end of the show. I appreciate you. Be sure to subscribe to my YouTube channel. That's at The Conservative Cat Show. And I'll catch you tomorrow morning, 6 a.m., 8 a.m. on Cities 92.9.